Hi kids, and welcome to Disney Animation Reviews. I'm Josiah Melky,
And I'm
your
his-
host for the show.
Oh, and I'm his younger sister Jordan, your co-host. Sorry.
It's okay, we'll work on that. Today I'm starting a new series on YouTube. Actually, it's the first series I'll ever be doing on YouTube of Disney Animation Reviews. It's the 80th anniversary of when Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs first burst on the movie screens and changed the world of feature film as we know it. Plus, it's been almost 2 years since Disney's last animated feature with Moana. And with Wreck-It Ralph 2 coming out this fall, I've decided to review all 56 of Disney's animated features. I'll be doing this every Wednesday and Saturday leading up to Wreck-It Ralph 2's release. My sister, Jordan, will occasionally be helping out every now and then. How this is going to work is I'm going to give a history on what led to the making of every animated Disney film, mention its release, give a brief plot synopsis, talk about what I like, what I don't like.
And I'll do the same.
And then talk about how the film, if they spawn the franchise, how big that franchise has become, and talk about the film's latest home video release. And give my final thoughts on what I think of every animated Disney film as we talk about it. So, obviously, we're going to start with Disney's very first animated feature, the one that started it all, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
That's right.
Walt Disney was born in 1901. He lived in small-town America. Growing up, he was a paper boy, a railroad engineer. He served as a nurse of some sort or something like that in World War I. I know he did something with the war effort, I just don't remember what. But his story really picks up in the 1920s when he started the Lapagram Film Company in Kansas City. Unfortunately, I don't remember how successful that company was. I do know he lost his first cartoon character, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, to a guy at Universal. In 1928, Walt Disney introduced his first really big cartoon character, Mickey Mouse, in the animated short film Steamboat Willie. Since then, Mickey has gone on to be one of the most popular cartoon characters in the world. Eventually, he was joined by fellow characters, his girlfriend Minnie Mouse, the ever-temperamental Donald Duck, the hilarious anthropomorphic dog Goofy, and Mickey's dog Pluto, among others. Along with the shorts starring Mickey in the gang, Disney also produced a number of animated shorts called Silly Symphonies, most of which won Academy Awards for Best Animated Short, including Flowers and Trees, which was the first color cartoon, and one of my personal favorites, The Three Little Pigs.
Yeah, you know the story. It's these three pigs, each of them builds a house, and the big bad wolf comes out and tries to eat them.
And of course it's famous for its son, who is afraid of the big bad wolf. In 1934, the same year Donald Duck debuted, Walt Disney decided he wanted to make the world's first ever animated feature film. A lot of different film ideas were chosen, including films that would later be made into animated Disney classics like Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, and Cinderella, but Walt Disney finally chose Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the popular fairy tale by the Grimm brothers. To present the idea to the studio, he actually got up and acted out the whole story, including all the characters.
Wow.
Impressive, I know. Even though it was a huge dream of Walt's, everyone at the studio and several film critics were nervous about the idea. Walt's brother and business partner Roy, and even his wife Lillian, attempted to talk him out of it, saying nobody is going to sit through an 80-minute cartoon. But Walt Disney wouldn't let anyone stand in his way, and it took about 3 to 4 years to get the film finished. The characters went through several revisions, plus the dwarves went through several name and personality changes, and getting the money was no easy task. I read that Walt had to mortgage his house to get all the money to make this movie.
Yeesh!
But it all paid off in the end when Snow White premiered at the Carthay Circle Theater just a few days prior to Christmas of 1937. And the film went on to be one of the greatest films in movie history. In fact, when it had its wide release in 1938, if I remember correctly, it was the highest grossing film of the year. And also, adjusted for inflation, Snow White is the only animated film on the top 10 highest grossing films of the year. Of all time. Everything else in the top 10 adjusted for inflation is live action, like Star Wars, Gone with the Wind, Titanic, and some others.
Huh.
So let's talk about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So, back then, Disney would always start with opening credits. They would have all the people that worked on the film at the start of the film rather than the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I particularly like the message that Walt Disney gave to thank everybody who worked on the film at the beginning, during the opening credits. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a chance to reread it, but there's a picture of it on Snow White's page at the Disney Wiki if you want to check it out for yourself. But it's a really meaningful message from Walt. So after the opening credits, the actual story begins with textual narration as we're introduced to the character of Snow White. She lives in a castle with her wicked stepmother, the Queen, who makes her work as a scullery maid. Every day, the Queen consults her magic mirror to ask who is the most beautiful of all. For years, the mirror replies that she is the most beautiful, but one day he tells her that Snow White is quickly becoming more beautiful, and the Queen is furious, especially after Snow White meets a handsome prince while drawing water from the wishing well, and they fall in love with each other. The Queen orders her huntsman to take Snow White into the forest and kill her, but instead, the huntsman lets her go. Snow White is greeted by several forest animals, and they take her to the cottage of the Seven Dwarfs, where she cleans up for them and cooks them a nice dinner. When the dwarves come home from their work in the diamond mine, they're surprised and a little excited to meet the princess, Snow White, and agree to let her stay with them, as long as she cooks and cleans for them. But the Queen finds out from the magic mirror that Snow White is still alive, so she disguises herself as an old hag and makes a poisoned apple for Snow White to eat, which will cause her to fall into a sleeping death that can only be revived by true love's first kiss. Does the prince return to Snow White, kiss her, and they all live happily ever after? Do the dwarves defeat the Queen and not let her get away with it? You'll have to watch the movie to find out for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, first off, what's good about this movie? First off, the animation, even if this was 1937, looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I read that the animators actually applied real blush, real makeup, to Snow White's cheeks, similar to what people would do in live action. The forest critters are very cute. The dwarves all have wonderful names and personalities. Dopey's my favorite, but don't tell Grumpy. And the songs are pretty good. The songs were by Larry Morey and Frank Churchill, who also wrote some of the other old Disney classics. And the score was done by Lee Harling and Paul Smith, who went on to do the score for Disney's next animated film, Pinocchio.
What do I like? Well, I like that this is a princess movie. I'm a huge fan of fairy tales.
Mm-hmm.
Snow White's songs are easily pretty, and I like that the dwarves, they're super loyal to her, and, they'll stop at nothing to keep her safe.
Mm-hmm. So, that's all good stuff. Now for the bad stuff.
Yeah.
First of all, okay, I like Snow White, but she seems a little too innocent. She's too trustworthy of her stepmother, the Queen, up until she finds out that the Queen wants to kill her, and she's too nice to discover that the old hag is really her stepmother in disguise. So Snow White's carefree personality is a little bit of a problem for the newer Disney generation, where you've got strong heroines like Rapunzel, Elsa, and even Pixar's Merida. But Snow White is a little too innocent for my taste, which is why she has so many problems with trusting people and not knowing who's good, who's bad. Also, her voice, her songs are nice, like Jordan said, but it sounds like a little girl was doing her voice, even though the voice of Snow White was an actual teenager, Adriana Casaloti. The Queen, on the other hand, Snow White might be pretty weak as a heroine. I think the Queen has a few more problems as the villain. We know that she wants to be beautiful, the most beautiful in the land, but we don't hear much about how she rules her kingdom. It's clear from the skeletons in her dungeon that she's not a very wise ruler, but I kind of wish we'd gotten a bit more backstory with her.
And actually, Disney Studios was gonna do a prequel to the film that shows how the dwarves met and how the Queen took over the throne.
But it got canceled. Also, because human characters at that point were probably the hardest characters to animate, boys especially, the prince actually had a number of other scenes that were going to involve him. Like, he was going to be captured by the queen and locked in her dungeon, but the forest animals rescued him so he could save Snow White with true love's kiss. Unfortunately, all those other scenes that the prince was going to be in, they all got deleted because the animation on the prince wasn't looking very good. That's about all. Otherwise, Snow White is very cute. I have two favorite songs in the movie. Hi Ho, which is probably the most famous song sung by the dwarves as they come home from work, and the yodeling song, also known as the dwarves' silly song.
All songs are good, but my two favorites are Whistle While You Work, the cleanup song, and Something My Prince Will Come.
Let's see. Like I said, Snow White was a big success when it first premiered, and went on to, in 1939, receive a special honorary Academy Award, given to Walt Disney by child actress Shirley Temple. It was 1 regular-sized statuette and 7 dwarf-sized ones. Snow White laid the foundation for several more animated Disney classics to come, and even if some of the stuff in the movie falls by the wayside, it's definitely, as a first animated Disney film, a very good start to the canon. So let's talk about the film's latest home video release, which in Snow White's case was its Walt Disney Signature Collection Blu-ray release in early 2016. Most of the bonus features are carried over from original home video releases, like deleted scenes, behind-the-scenes features, and audio commentary, but the Signature Collection release adds some new bonus features too, including, in Walt's words, Walt's remarks about the making of the film, a feature called Iconography, where people talk about how iconic of a character Snow White has become, a behind-the-scenes look at the design of Snow White, the character of Snow White, from some of today's Disney artists, including Disney animator Mark Henn, supervising animator on Princesses from the Renaissance era, and also Tiana from The Princess and the Bride. Snow White in 70 Seconds, the title says it all, it's the story of Snow White told in 70 seconds, in the style of a rap. Wow. And a fun facts featurette hosted by Disney Channel star Sophia Carson, who has a connection with Snow White because she plays the evil queen's daughter, Evie, in the Descendants movies.
Likewise, another connection is Dopey, the most iconic of the dwarves, has a son named Doug.
That's right. Which leads me into the next thing about Snow White, which is how it's grown as a franchise. Snow White doesn't have a direct-to-video sequel or anything like that, but characters from Snow White have appeared on TV shows like House of Mouse and Once Upon a Time. Like Jordan said, some of the Snow White characters, the Evil Queen and Dopey, have kids, Evie and Doug, respectively. And the Seven Dwarfs have their own TV show on Disney XD a couple years ago called the 7D. I haven't seen it, but it doesn't interest me that much. That's about it. So, all in all, as a first animated effort, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, if it hadn't been the success it was, I don't think Disney would even exist. But Snow White was a success, and it laid the foundation for many animated Disney films to come. I think maybe it falls to the middle of the pack when you compare it to all the animated Disney films, but overall, I do think it's a very entertaining first animated effort from Disney. Well, that's all for now. Until next time, remember, when you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. Bye!
Bye!